You're here because you have an interest in jewelry. And I wanted to share with you what drew me to the jewelry industry, because I've seen the same sorts of things happen with many of our successful students and graduates finding satisfaction in this creative industry. I was originally in the IT industry doing IT management and marketing management related to IT. And I came to jewelry because I was very interested in the fact that it was both creative and happy. It wasn't a very stressful industry. It was an industry where we had lots of opportunities to work with customers and help them enjoy what it was that we were doing. But most importantly, it was because it was a growth industry. So let me tell you a little bit more about this. Firstly, jewelry is a creative industry. You're effectively helping people express their personal style. You're working with customers to design unique and memorable jewelry pieces, but more importantly, you're creating heirlooms, things that have value and that your customers will enjoy again and again. They're not temporary or transient things. Jewelry is also a happy industry. It celebrates significant occasions, and that lets you connect with customers in ways that absolutely no other product can. Things like making birthday gifts and anniversary gifts, working with customers to make unique engagement rings or wedding bands, basically making things that they're going to have imbued with significance for the rest of their lives. Gives us as designers and as people working in the jewelry industry a lot of satisfaction. But more importantly, we really need to think about, is it a good business to be in? And jewelry certainly is. In fact, most people don't know, but jewelry is by far the most significant contributor to global sales of any personal accessory. Its relevance for everyday use, but it's also its significant cultural importance, present jewelry with a unique selling proposition that allows us to target customers across the world in different age groups, in different price brackets, and basically allows us to have every person be our potential customer. And why? Well, it's because jewelry is part fashion, embodying the trends and the aesthetics that designers need to come up with investment, incorporating the high intrinsic value of the gemstones and the precious metals that customers really see as a long-term investment. So that really gives us exciting opportunities and makes this industry a very unique one to look at.
So first we have to ask ourselves the question, what exactly is fashion jewelry? There are lots of misconceptions running around. And one of those misconceptions is that fashion jewelry is exactly the same as costume jewelry. Now that is actually not the case. There are many distinct differences, and I hope to let you be able to see this. When we think of jewelry, these three types come to mind. First, of course, is fine jewelry. And this is usually jewelry that is made with the highest quality of metals, like gold, platinum, sometimes even silver, and it usually has top quality, very popular gems like your diamonds, your rubies, your emeralds, sapphires, etc. But it also has the finest of craftsmanship. These pieces tend to be expensive. They're not expensive for no reason. They're expensive because it takes a lot of time and effort, in fact hundreds of hours sometimes, to produce the most beautiful pieces. And that craftsmanship is something that requires also a great deal of skill. Let's now talk about fashion jewelry. It can also be made with high quality materials and metals. There's no reason why not. It also is good quality, and it usually has less costly gems. Now we can certainly use rubies and sapphires and all of these different things. But most of the time we use innovative materials, and we can use many other types of minerals that we have available on the market today. And they're not as expensive as the diamonds, of course. There's also an easy assembly process, and it is good craftsmanship. It does not take as long to prepare as the fine jewelry, but certainly there's no reason why it can't be made well, and it will still be affordable. And lastly, let's talk about costume jewelry. Costume jewelry is typically made with base metals. It is a wide variety of all kinds of materials, but the most of it is even glass and plastic when it comes to what look like the gems that are set into the material. When the gems are set, they're not usually set the same way as we would with fashion jewelry or fine jewelry, because they are often glued in place. And one of the most important things to remember is that costume jewelry is more often than not mass-produced. So a lot of the components are stamped out by machine and then assembled very quickly. So there is not as much craftsmanship, and there is a huge quantity of costume jewelry that makes its way onto the market, and you will see many people wearing it. So a very big difference between fine jewelry and fashion jewelry can be the cost, and a very big difference between fashion jewelry and costume jewelry is the fact that fashion jewelry are one-of-a-kind pieces. They could be limited edition, but they are not mass-produced in very, very high numbers. So if we look at how many jewelry techniques there are available to us, you'll see there are very many for us to choose from. And this is very exciting because it gives us the possibility to create endless designs. There is no one that has to be done by itself. We can take any of these and we can combine them in multiple ways to then become a lot more creative, especially today. If you just work with one technique at a time, that's good because you would learn the technique. But some people might say, oh, this looks a little old-fashioned. Yeah, but if you take the different types and you combine them together and you get creative with them, you can create a whole new genre of fashion jewelry, which is really exciting. The first in a line of many processes would be stringing without knots. And the stringing without knots is something that's fast, it's fun, and it can be very durable and very, very lasting, making sure that we use the right materials to string with. There's a lot of different materials that can be used with this technique, and most importantly for the technique, we need to make sure that even if we're using less costly materials, that we have the right procedures for finishing, because that's one of the most important aspects. The finishing of each of these should be a lasting finishing. When we make a piece of jewelry, whether it's fashion jewelry or fine jewelry, it should be made to last. Then we go to stringing with knots. Now this is really interesting because I'm sure everybody out there has beautiful pearls, whether they are Akoya pearls, which are the Japanese variety, or whether they might be the South Sea variety, which are a little bit more expensive. They should be cared for properly, and they should be strung properly with knots in between every single pearl. If your pearl necklace is not fully knotted, then there is a bit of an issue with that, because if the string breaks, then the chances are very high that you might lose some of your valuable materials. So knowing when to string with knots and when to string with no knots is a valuable thing to understand. What materials to use for the no knotting versus the knotting system is also extremely important. And what you can and cannot use with pearls that are organic materials is something else that needs to be understood very clearly. So all of that is covered in our programs so that you'll know what to buy, what kinds of thicknesses that you need, depending on the drill holes of the materials, and when to fully knot and when to partially knot, depending on the combination of materials that you're going to put together. Another one is professional wire work. So this is when we take good materials and we will insert a wire through the drill hole, and that wire can come in different forms. It can come in head pins, it can come in eye pins, and it can also come in just pure wire. We need to understand the difference between the head pins, the eye pins, when to use them, what lengths, what thicknesses, and of course, something very important is how strong those pins are in order to hold that piece of jewelry together and make it a lasting piece of jewelry. So there's no reason why we cannot use this technique for extremely valuable materials like the one you see here, which is tourmaline and freshwater pearls. Or you can also use it together on other less costly materials where you have large quantities of materials. Or you could use it on very unique materials, as you see here, for the boulder matrix opal that has been beautifully paired with the gold. Another offshoot to wirework would be chainmail. And I say it's an offshoot to wirework because we're still using wires, but they come in the form of rings. So we need to know what are the sizes of the rings and how do we connect those rings together to make sure that they're never going to fall apart and they're never going to open and all of the parts will stay together for years and years to come. Chainmail is one of the most therapeutic techniques that you can do. I would put this technique alongside with the stringing technique, which once you know how to do it really well, it becomes really therapeutic for everybody. And with chainmail, there are many, many different styles within chainmail that you can make use of. Of course, chainmail is something that goes back centuries. It goes back to the Middle Ages and even before the Middle Ages, when we didn't have guns and when we had weapons. And I'm sure that many of you know that chainmail was something that was made for the men to wear when they went to war, because with the arrows that were being slung at them, that chainmail would protect them because it would not allow the arrows to pass through that chainmail outfit that was made so lovingly for each of those guys. So the chainmail can be done also in chain form. And when I say chain form, you can do some very beautiful Byzantine chain styles. And once you know how to do it, it can be very fast and very easy.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about the Jewelry Design and Management International School, because we are the only school in Singapore specialized in jewelry education, and we are your best option if you want to get to know more about gemstones, about designing jewelry, about manufacturing jewelry, or basically about anything related to the jewelry industry. So what is JDMIS? We are a private educational institution based in Singapore, and we've been operating since 2007. Now, as a school, we have an established curriculum with certification courses for specific skills competencies, with diploma courses for people that need a more comprehensive qualification. But we've actually been training the jewelry industry and jewelry artisans here in Singapore since 1987. And we're an integral part of the jewelry industry in the region. We have a unique approach to training that makes us your best option if you're interested to get to know more about gemstones and jewelry.
Each lesson is a small project, after which I feel very fulfilled, like this skill is enough to make a ring or earrings or a pendant. As a fashion student, I've been through average university education, so I expected that probably JDMIS will be the same in terms of how the study goes, in terms of environment, all these things. But when I came, everything feels so neat and so peaceful that I do not feel rushed as I usually feel at university.
Fashion jewelry is broad. My favorite techniques are mainly chainmail and wire making, because we can incorporate these two techniques together to make a very exotic design. Of course, I have my plans to have my own sideline and also to combine with my mom interest in fashion design with fashion accessories.
So let me share with you some of the interesting elements of our training programs. First of all of our instructors are experienced professional trainers, and they have industry experience. So we don't bring in trainers that haven't actually used their skills. All of our trainers are actually part-time trainers that are using their skills commercially and then coming to share their experiences and their passion with our students and our graduates. That makes a huge difference to us. We also have really small class sizes because we're doing mostly hands-on programs. And if you're doing hands-on training, you don't want to have 20 people in a class. You don't even want to have 15 people in a class. You need personal attention. And so typically our courses will have 8 to 10 people in a class. Another thing that's really interesting is that everything is included. Now, what do I mean by everything? Well, we have a lot of people over the years that have come to us to say, you know what, I learned about jewelry, but I never got a chance to practice. And that's absolutely painful for us to hear. When you're learning a skill, you need to be able to put that skill to use in order to keep your skills current and in order to be able to get to the next level, to be able to really practice and master the skills that we've been teaching you. So our philosophy is that when you finish your class and you go home, you shouldn't then be wondering, well, how am I going to be able to use those skills? So we make sure you take with you absolutely everything that you need in order to practice those skills from home. Now, if you're doing a design course, that might be your pens, your pencils, your templates, all of those elements that you need in order to work. If you're doing a metal smithing course, for example, you receive your workbench, your flex shaft, all of your polishing bits, your torch, your hammers, your saws, basically everything that you need to start your home studio and to practice the skills that you're using. This is really, really important to us, that every course you do, you take home with you the things you need to continue working and improving your skills.